Good morning, students. Today we will be doing Alice in Wonderland once again, and we will be finishing off with this chapter. Well, before we continue, a quick recap of what we did in the past 2 days. Alice falls in a rabbit hole and lands in a low hall. This hall had a number of doors which was all locked. She tried her level best to open all the doors, but she could not. And in the end, she finds a small golden key which fitted a small door. Alice opened the door and found that it led into a small passage which was the size of a rat hole. But when she tried to go through, it was just impossible because she was much bigger than the rat hole. So now what happened? She wished that she would shrink and be folded as they would fold the telescope. And at that very moment, she saw a tiny bottle, a little bottle, which was kept on the table with the words, "Drink me," beautifully printed on it. And when she drank the liquid from it, she had this curious feeling, this odd feeling that she was actually shrinking in size. And she did shrink. She shrank to 10 inches. And her face really brightened because now she thought that she would go in the lovely garden. Then she also realized for a moment that what if she continued to shrink and maybe just disappear like the flame of the candle? Well, she was imagining things. And after that, what happens? We have to continue today. So after a while, finding that nothing more happened, she decided on going into the garden at once. So it's not that she disappeared altogether. She shrank till 10 inches and after that it stopped. That means the shrinking part stopped. Okay. So then she decided to go to the garden. She was very happy that now she could easily enter through that rat hole and reach the garden. When she got to the door, she found she had forgotten the little golden key. And when she went back to the table for it, she found she could not reach it. Now imagine, her size was now only 10 inches. So when she tried to go to the door, then she realized that she has actually forgotten the key which was there on the table. And when she came back to get the keys, now she realizes that she could not reach the top of the table because she was very small in size. When she had tired herself out with trying, the poor little thing sat down and cried. Now she must be jumping up and down to reach the top of the table to try and get the keys. But it was not possible because of course the table would be much higher. You can see it in the picture also. The table is so high and she would never have reached the top of the table. So she tried herself a number of times and got tired. And then she sat down and started crying like all small children, isn't it? "Come, there's no use in crying like that," said Alice to herself, rather sharply. Sharply means rather sternly. Now we should give credit to this girl, students, that she was actually a very strong one. She had a very strong personality. She said, "Come, there's no use in crying like that." She chided herself. She scolded herself and said that it is no use crying. "I advise you to leave off this minute." And she herself is giving orders to herself. I advise you. I means Alice. She herself is giving orders. Rather, she is thinking aloud and saying to leave off this minute. Leave off means to stop crying. So she gathered her courage, she gathered her wit, and she said, "Look, it's no point crying. I have to be positive and I have to stop crying and now try and see how I can get out of it or try and do something about the situation, not just cry like a small baby." Soon her eye fell on a little glass box that was lying under the table, and she opened it and found a small cake on which the words "Eat me" were beautifully marked in currants. Now she found another thing. On top of the table she had found a bottle and a key. Now she realized that there was a small glass box under the table. And she was the small herself, so she could open it. And she found a very small cake in it. and on that it was written, "Eat me," in currants. Currants over here means, students, small, dark, dried, seedless grapes. You must have eaten those currants yourself, those small dried grapes. Okay, it is the seedless one. You don't have the seeds in it. Okay, so with those currants, it was written, "Eat me." Now she started thinking, "Well, I'll eat it," said Alice. "And if it makes me grow larger, I can reach the key. And if it makes me grow smaller, I can creep under the door. So either way, I'll get into the garden and I don't care which happens." Now Alice had made up her mind. She said that, "Okay, now I have to eat this key. If I grow tall, then I can reach the key. If it makes me grow smaller, if I can still grow smaller," because right now she was 10 inches, she said that if I grow still smaller, then I can creep under the door. That means she would be so small that she would be able to move quietly from underneath the door and then reach the garden. So either way, she said, something will happen, whether I'll grow or whether I'll grow smaller or I'll grow more in height, something will definitely happen. So I have to eat this cake. Then what happens, students? See, you have it over here. Yeah. She ate a little bit and said anxiously to herself, nervously. Anxiously means nervously. See, she said nervously to herself, which way, holding her hand on the top of her head to feel which way it was growing. You can do so and try it out yourself. Suppose you keep your hand on your head and then try and feel what Alice was feeling. She said, which way, which way? She was just holding her hand on top of her head and trying to ascertain, trying to gauge whether she was growing up or she was going downwards. If she was growing upwards, that means she was growing in size. If she was shrinking, that means she was shrinking in size. So, which way? She kept thinking in her mind, holding her hand on the top of her head to feel which way it was growing. And she was quite surprised to find that she remained the same size. Nothing happened, students. She remained the same size. She did not grow tall. She did not shrink further. To be sure, this generally happens when one eats cake. But this is what generally happens, isn't it? If we eat a piece of cake, it doesn't mean that we will grow either in height or we will shrink in size. But Alice had got so much into the way of expecting nothing but out of the way things to happen that it seemed quite dull and stupid for life to go on in the common way. But life was not the same in case of Alice. Alice had got so much, she had started expecting so much out of the way. That means Alice was always expecting something strange to happen, something out of the way to happen. That when nothing happened, she thought that it was so stupid, so dull, so monotonous of the life to continue in a similar manner. See, because Alice and her imagination was going by leaps and bounds. She was imagining everything. She would imagine that she had fallen in a rat hole. She had seen a rabbit, and that was, the rabbit was talking. He was seeing his watch. And then when she had fallen in the hall, she had imagined that she was in a place which had a table, which had a key, which had so many things. This was all her imagination. So this time also, when she thought that probably she would, grow in size or she would shrink, when nothing happened, she thought that, oh my God, she was highly disheartened. Nothing happened because she was always expecting something or the other to happen, right? She was, everything, strange things were happening with Alice. But now, even though she ate a bit of the cake, but nothing happened. So this time she really felt that this is quite dull, this is so stupid, that nothing happened because she was used to something strange being happened to her. So she set to work and very soon finished off the cake. So then she probably thought, let me finish off with the whole cake and then maybe something will happen. And your chapter ends over here. Now students, like I said in the beginning, this is a story from the novel Alice in Wonderland, which has 12 chapters, and this is only the first chapter. Okay, this is not the complete story. So in a way, I would just briefly like to tell you that in the real story, Alice eats the cake and she comes to the normal size. But as of now, what we have to focus on is that Alice ate a bit of the cake but nothing happened, and so she finished off with the cake. This entire story is fiction. It is pure imagination seen from a child's mind. This is childhood innocence, fantasy that we are talking about. In reality, nothing of this kind of happens. It's not that if a person eats a piece of cake, then the person increases in size, or if a person drinks liquid from a bottle, then the person would shrink in size, or that a person can fall in a rabbit hole. Nothing of this sort happens. This is pure imagination, right? So we ended up over here with this chapter. I hope all of you have understood so far. Okay, thank you.